Hey there, welcome into Bracket Science. Welcome back to another episode. I am Brandon Jadich. I am your host. We got a special episode today where we are previewing some of the best future bets that you may be placing. It is now almost the end of January. It is currently Monday. We have some big games tonight. We got Houston taking on Texas tonight in Texas, and we also have Duke visiting Virginia Tech. We're recording right now as this Duke game has just tipped off, so we're not going to get too in-depth with those. But what we are going to talk about is what you should know for some of the future bets you are thinking of placing for the rest of the year, including some of the conference winners, along with even some of the national championship winners. We're not going to exactly tell you what we think you should be betting. We're just going to give you some background knowledge on what some of these teams' schedules look like. Some teams may sneak up from behind who has some of the best chances to be that team to make a run based on what their schedule is showing. For instance, Houston is favored by a lot in the Big 12, yet they do not have the easiest schedule coming through, so we'll go into in depth on what other teams may have better value in betting them going forward. We're also, of course, going to talk about some of the results from last week, which we always do. We had a big weekend. We had a lot of ranked matchup, a lot more ranked teams go down, and then we're going to talk about some of the upcoming games this week. But our main highlight of the show is this future betting. So if you want to skip forward to that, skip forward. We'll place the times down in the description. So let us know. Thanks again for tuning in. Let's jump right into it with some of the results from last week before we start getting into our betting segment. What better way to start off a betting special than with a bad beat, unfortunately. Unfortunately, it was for you Iowa State bettors who had Iowa State minus 4.5. Iowa State was the 23rd ranked team in the country. They hosted the 7th ranked team in the country, Kansas, but was favored by 4.5. Ended up winning the game by 4. It was a horrible beat at the end of the game. Kevin McCullough hit a 3 with looked like it was 50-50 whether he got the shot off or not. A garbage time 3. It ended up counting. They said it left his hand with about 0.1 seconds left. Ended up being a 4-point Iowa State victory. Sorry for those who had Iowa State minus 4.5. Good for those who had Kansas plus 4.5 or maybe even plus 5 if they got it early enough. But hopefully you didn't take Kansas on the money line. Hopefully it was a Kansas plus 4.5 situation. But great win for Iowa State. Trey King led them with 21 points. The story is Kansas as of right now, 4-3 in the conference. Iowa State moves to 5-2 in the conference. Kansas, we've talked a lot about who's going to be their 5th guy. They got a good 4. They got DeJuan Harris, KJ Adams, Hunter Dickinson, and Kevin McCullough, who will most likely be on the first team All Big 12. But they moved Johnny Furphy into the starting lineup, and he's been better. He's a good shooter. He's been better than Omarco Jackson, who was a 5-star recruit. Started off the season starting, has been, quite frankly, been pretty disappointing. Johnny Furphy's come in, and he's at least given them some scoring, but he's just not that guy who can take over the game. I understand he's a freshman, but they're going to need some sparks. They got 2 points total off the bench. Nick Timberlake, the transfer, has been quite disappointing. He went 0 for 3 in the game. He can't score unless he's wide open for 3. His points per game are up there a little bit, but that is strictly because he plays the garbage minutes against the bad competition that Kansas plays, and he hits his 3s then. Johnny Furphy, he probably wouldn't even be the best player on a team like Akron or a team like UC Irvine, something like that. It's just at Kansas, the expectation's a little higher, not quite living up to it yet. And for this reason, I will say do not bet on Kansas to win the national championship. We'll talk about them in terms of their Big 12 odds here in a little bit. So it was a great win for Iowa State. Kansas falling off the horn a little bit. Let's talk a little bit about the press conference in this game where Iowa State coach TJ Aschenberger unfortunately had to address some comments that some of the allegations that took place that Jerome Tang, Kansas State head coach, got into it with Aschenberger about Iowa State having managers recording the huddles in the Kansas State game. No idea if this is true or not, but TJ Aschenberger came out and just basically gave an opening statement and said that they would never do anything like this. It's not worth it. I find it hard to believe of why anyone would do something like this, especially in basketball. It's just it's not the same as football in terms of play calling, in terms of, I don't know, just stuff like that. But big allegations there. So we'll see where that leads. If Jerome Tang at Kansas State made these false accusations, he's definitely going to owe Iowa State and everyone involved an apology there. We'll see if something else comes out. I doubt it, but nevertheless, a great win for Iowa State here. Speaking of Kansas State, they visited number 4 Houston, where Houston just took it to them, beat them up 74-52. Houston won this game. Houston is the best team in the Big 12 by talent, by coaching. They are the best defensive team in the nation, not just the Big 12. They are great defensively, and they're starting to score the ball a little bit better. Their guards are really fast. Kind of remind me of that Baylor team a couple years ago with all those guards: Maceo Teague, Jared Butler, Davion Mitchell. Houston, they got L.J. Cryer, Shed, and they Emmanuel Sharp. They've been really, really good. This was a dominating performance. They showed it on both ends of the floor. Let's move on. Staying in the Big 12, number 20 Texas Tech visited Oklahoma and beat them 85-84. Oklahoma blowing a late lead there, and just like that, Texas Tech is still in first in the Big 12. Not a lot of people saw that coming. Great win for Texas Tech. Quickly moving along, we'll stay in the Big 12. TCU and number 15 Baylor played the game of the day. This game ended up in triple overtime. TCU beat them 105-102. Great road win for the Horned Frogs. I think Baylor's a little bit overrated. I was big on this team earlier in the year. This team just quite frankly does not play great defense, and offensively they're not as good as we're used to being. They're young. They have some young talent. Jacoby Walter is great. Yves Missy has been okay. He's been solid. He had a great game in this one, but I'm more in on TCU than I am on Baylor, which is self-explanatory with them winning at Baylor to give Baylor their first loss in their new arena. TCU may have one of the best teams they've had in a while. They had a great team last year with Mike Miles. They now Emmanuel Miller. He's a star. TCU is very good. They're climbing up the seed list in a lot of bracketologies. We'll see when we release our bracketology here in a couple days. We'll see how far they climbed up. Final game in the Big 12 we're going to talk about was Texas visiting number 21 BYU. Texas got beat 72-84, but the story in this one was pregame, where BYU had a student section in white t-shirts spelled out "horns down," and it became a whole controversy. BYU eventually made them take their shirts off, change their shirts. It wasn't nothing really led to anything, but just very interesting, all this horns down stuff. Texas kind of a little soft in my opinion. What is so, if people can't say horns down, why can you say horns up? They're almost pegging it as like a slur nowadays. I'm not sure what is so offensive about it, but they obviously feel like they can give out horns up, but they can't take horns down. So very interesting there. Kind of turns me off Texas a little bit. I think this team's already been disappointing. They're 3-4 in the Big 12. BYU with this win also moves to 3-4. I think Texas has a lot of talent, but kind of seem to be the most hated team in the nation right now with all this horns down stuff. So we'll see where that leads. Just kind of a interesting non-basketball story out of that. Let's move into the ACC, where we had the two big blue bloods, North Carolina and Duke, both partaked in big games on Saturday. North Carolina beat Florida State 75-68. This was actually a game of the top two teams in the ACC, believe it or not. North Carolina won, and RJ Davis just continues to play at an ACC Player of the Year level. He had 24 points. Harrison Ingram had another great game, 13 points, 17 rebounds. Stanford transfer has been incredible. He was that missing piece that they needed. They now have three studs with a shooter and a great point guard, Elliot Cadeau, with the shooter being Cormac Ryan. His team is really good, but Clemson visited to Duke, which is the game we want to talk about. Duke came in number 12th in the nation. Duke won the game 72-71, but in Clemson's fans' eyes, they did not. There were a lot of questionable calls down the stretch. They actually called a foul with less than a second left. On Clemson. It's a 50-50 call. A lot of people say you can't make that call late in the game. It was Tyrese Proctor. He seemed to Tyrese Proctor of Duke, I should probably add. He caused the contact with his lower body. We'll just say that. They called the foul. He made both free throws, and Clemson didn't even have a chance. This was almost a huge win to get Clemson back on track. PJ Hall played great. He had 19 points. He's starting to play better. I'm still in on Clemson. I think Clemson's good. But this kind of just proves to me that Clemson's been struggling, and yes, they're better than what their record shows, but I just don't think Duke is that talented this year. Kyle Filipowski is really good. I think Tyrese Proctor's good. They've had some health issues. think they got a decent starting five. I don't even think their starting five is as talented as Kansas, and I'm off of Kansas right now. Not in on Duke right now. They jumped into the top 10, which sets up a top 10 matchup for Duke, North Carolina this weekend, which we'll talk about in our next show. Obviously, a huge matchup, biggest rivalry in college basketball. I expect North Carolina to dominate that game. I think North Carolina is a much, much better team than John Shire's Duke team. But let's keep moving. Let's move on to the SEC, where number 8 Auburn lost again on the road at Mississippi State, 64-58, their second straight loss. Auburn still has 0 quad 1 wins this late in the year. A lot of people are big on them. They're high up to win the national title. They're maybe the 8th or ninth favorite. They're plus 2,000, I know. But Mississippi State, this is a big win for them. They're on the bubble. They had that tough loss to Southern, kind of in the same predicament as like FAU, a couple questionable losses, but they have some good wins. This was a good win here against Auburn, but Auburn, the computers love them. The quad 1 win's not there. Kentucky visited Arkansas, and Kentucky won 63-57. Unfortunately, another bad beat. Tough to start our betting show with a couple of bad beats. Kentucky came into the game minus 6.5. They had that. A lot of people had that boost on DraftKings. It was a 50% profit boost, and most of the money was on Kentucky just because Arkansas came into the game 10-9. They lost. They're now 10-10. But Kentucky, most of the money was on them. They were up by 9 and at the free throw line with only a couple seconds left. Reed Shepherd, the guy you want at the free throw line, one of the best free throw shooters in the conference and in the country, one of the most reliable guys, misses the front end. Arkansas comes down, just garbage time, lays it up, didn't look like a foul. They called a foul and won. They lose the game by 6. Tough beat for you Kentucky bettors. Couple bad beats from some blue blood programs, Kentucky and Kansas, but this was a tough one, but it was still a win for Kentucky. Only scored 63 points. Their offense was not really there in this game, but they still beat a really struggling Arkansas team. Arkansas falls to 10-10. Ole Miss visited Texas A&M, and Ole Miss beat them 71-68. Chris Beard is doing an incredible job at Ole Miss, for those who don't know. Not quite sure what is happening at A&M right now. I was so big on this team coming into the year. I think they got a ton of talent. Wade Taylor was preseason SEC Player of the Year. He was supposed to be really good. He is really good, don't get me wrong, but he is just forcing shots like you would not believe. He's shooting. There's rarely any games where he's shooting less than 20 times. Henry Coleman has been he's been solid. They have Tyrese Radford, who's also been solid. They're just not winning games. Wade Taylor is taking way too many shots. They need to run an offense instead of just one-on-one ball. But Ole Miss going on the road, A&M actually led by 7 late in the game, and just Ole Miss fought all the way back. Chris Beard just seemed to outcoach Buzz Williams in this game. Ole Miss they're going to be a tournament team. I can almost guarantee that, unless something drastic happens to them. Chris Beard has got them rolling. Also in the SEC, another game of sort of bubble teams. Georgia visited Florida. Florida won the game 102-98 in overtime, but this was not the story. Florida actually led by 21 points with 12 minutes left. Georgia came all the way back to take the game to overtime. Florida ended up winning. A coaching change might be incoming over there at Florida. This team's they got a lot of talent. They're just a couple nitpicking things that seem to happen every single game. The SEC, as we've talked about, is a fun league this year. Everyone seems to be getting better and better, except Florida. Florida seems to be getting just worse and worse. Remember the days where they were a top 4 seed in the tournament? They were a blue blood almost every single year, and they're getting worse as of late. I think they're going to be in the tournament in March. They might be a first 4 team, might be a bye team, or they might be out of the tournament. It's up for grabs right now, and they're going to have to make some changes. Can't blow a 21-point lead in the conference at home. With only 12 minutes left, that's getting out coached right there. Let's move into the Big East. The first game was Seton Hall visiting number 14 Marquette, and Marquette took care of business easily, 75-57. Seton Hall was without Kadari Richmond, who is by far their best player, and even in the hunt for Big East Player of the Year. Seton Hall is starting to fade a little bit. He's been out the last 2 games, and they've lost the last 2 games. They need him back. Seton Hall did not have a great non-conference, so starting off big in conference play was massive for their resume and their at-large hopes. They're going to have to start winning games. They're going to be close to a bubble team as of now with losing these last couple. Also on Saturday, Villanova visited Butler. Villanova led the entire time in regulation and lost the game. They never trailed. Butler won 88-81 in double overtime. As we said, Butler did not have a lead until overtime. Villanova they were in control. It was like 17-3 or something like that. They led even big in the second half. And Thad Matta, they kept showing inside the huddle. Thad Matta, the coach at Butler, he kept saying, "We're going to win this game. We're going to win this game." Great coaching there. They did. Not great coaching from Kyle Neptune. Villanova has lost 4 of 5. This team is 11-9 on the year. They are seriously on the bubble right now. They have a lot of big wins. They also have some bad losses. If they do not make the tournament this year for the second year in a row, it may very well be the end of Kyle Neptune. And as it should be, Jay Wright left this program in a great place, and Kyle Neptune has not lived up to it. This team's got a lot of talent with Eric Dixon and Justin Moore. You would think this team should be really good, and they showed spurts earlier in the year. I think we had them in our top 10 at one point earlier in the year. But it shows just how important coaching is, and Kyle Neptune is not getting the job done as of right now. Another game we just got to mention was on Sunday where Xavier visited number 1 UConn, number 1 team in the nation, and UConn dominated this entire game, 99-56, 43-point win. Bear in mind, Xavier had come in just kind of rolling. They were on a little bit of a heater, but just no match for Dan Hurley and UConn. Just an offensive and defensive masterclass by this entire UConn team. Right now, it's UConn and Purdue at 1A and 1B. I still have Purdue at number 1 because they didn't do anything to lose that spot. But UConn is right there. They are at the top tier, and I have Houston just slightly behind them, probably Houston and North Carolina. It's close. Those are the 2 top tiers, but UConn and Purdue are on a different level right now. Let's move into the Mountain West. The first game we got to mention wasn't even on our games to watch, but unfortunately it happened. Number 24, Colorado State visited Wyoming and got beat in overtime 79-76. By the way, a ton of overtime games on Saturday, as you will start to notice. I was kind of worried about this game for Colorado State. They were hot earlier in the year, and I've kind of mentioned on this that I'm worried about them coming into to Mountain West play just because I don't know if they're really that good. So I was curious to see how they do against the middle of the pack in the conference, teams like Wyoming and UNLV, San Jose, teams like that. So this game kind of caught my attention, but it wasn't one of the bigger games of the day, and unfortunately Wyoming did end up winning the game. Colorado State is still safely in the tournament. They had a great non-conference, but they're going to have to go above 500 in the Mountain West, I think, to end up making the tournament. I'm worried about them on the road. I kind of saw it against Colorado when they beat Colorado. It was an electric environment. This was way earlier in the year, a rivalry game. They hadn't beat them in a while. They were blazing hot. They were making threes like no other coming into the game and even in that game. But you just could kind of see this team's not that talented outside of Isaiah Stevens. So I'm very curious to see how they handle this, if they'll still end up in the tournament. We'll see. Anytime they take on any of these big 6 Mountain West teams that we've talked about, it might not go too well for them, other than maybe against Nevada, team like that. But big win there for Wyoming. Next one we want to talk about, number 18, Utah State visited Boise State. Of course it went to overtime. Utah State did end up winning 90-84 on the road. Utah State now in first place of the Mountain West. This was a first place game coming into it. Both teams were 5-1, and Utah State pulled it out. Utah State slowly starting to separate from the pack. As we said, Colorado State's going down. Boise State, I think, will end up kind of being in the medium of these Power 6 teams, maybe 3rd or 4th in the conference. I would say probably 4th. We thought it was going to be San Diego State and Colorado State in the non-conference. As I said, I had my skepticisms, but those seem to be the 2 powerhouses. Right now, I think it is Utah State and New Mexico. Utah State we have as number 11 in our top 25 teams right now. They're all the way up to 11. And a team even ahead of them, we have New Mexico at number 10, who dominated Nevada 89-55 on Sunday. New Mexico now 6-2 in the conference. And as we noted, up to 10 in our rankings. We have the number 10 and number 11 in our rankings, both Mountain West schools. Pretty impressive there what that conference is doing. New Mexico played great defense in this one. No Nevada player was in double figures. And I mean, it's just proven week in and week out how tough it is to play at the pit. New Mexico is one of the best teams at home. They're in the top 20 of home court advantage at KenPom. New Mexico just half a game back now of Utah State with this win. Utah State and New Mexico 1A and 1B in that conference as of now, with San Diego State just right there behind them. Just a few notable results out of the Big Ten. Illinois beat Indiana by 8. Purdue beat Rutgers. Nothing too big there. Northwestern did beat Ohio State by 25, which is very concerning for Ohio State. They can't win on the road. They're a horrible road team. Maryland also beat Nebraska by 22 at Maryland. Maryland's starting to roll a little bit, but Nebraska near the bubble, kind of a tough loss here. Moving into the Pac-12, Arizona took care of Oregon, 87-78. This was a rebound game for Arizona after losing at Oregon State. Caleb Love went off. He had 36 points, 12 of 18 shooting. Normally, Caleb Love, if he has 36 points, he's going to go, 15 of 35 from the field, but only 18 shots to get 36 points. Very impressive there. Colorado got beat at Washington State, 78-69. Washington State is rolling right now and making a little bit of buzz as an at-large contender. They're a solid team. We saw them beat Arizona. Now Colorado, that's going to be 2 quad 1 games. Watch out for Washington State. Out of the A10, a game we got to discuss, number 16 Dayton came in rolling, winning 13 in a row, yet they got beat at Richmond, 69-64. Big win for Richmond. Now you think the story might be Dayton here, but for Dayton, it's just a quad 1 loss. Richmond is that good. Richmond is now in first in the conference at 7-0. Dayton is 6-1. Richmond might have a chance as an at-large. If they were to run through the rest of the conference, they probably can't afford to slip up anywhere. They're currently 69th in the net, so kind of borderline. But the A10's best chance would be Richmond probably winning the conference tournament, and Dayton should get an at-large. I would think almost a lock as of now. But huge win there for the Spiders. Out of the Ivy League, Princeton. We've talked a lot about Princeton. We got to mention this game visited Cornell. Cornell is having a great year out of the Ivy League as well. And Cornell did beat them 83-68. This tied things up in the Ivy League. This is now Princeton's second loss on the year. Cornell and Princeton will be battling for that automatic qualifier bid there. In the Sun Belt, there are 2 teams worth mentioning, and they both played each other. James Madison played Appalachian State at Appalachian State, and App State beat them 82-76, and this is the second time App State has beat James Madison this year, which gives them a 2-game lead in the conference. App State looking like the Sun Belt automatic qualifier team as of right now. They look very good. And then on Sunday, the last 2 games we're going to discuss are out of the American Conference. Unfortunately, Memphis dropped yet another game, a 3-game losing streak for them. They lost at UAB 97-88. Memphis has now dropped out of the top 25 in the AP poll. This team, I kind of saw it from the beginning. I watched that game against Michigan, and obviously Michigan is bad. Memphis just they're just not one of the best teams in the nation. That's the only way I can put it. I still think they're a good team. I think they will be in the tournament. They're not a top 10 team. Like, they were ranked 10th just 2 weeks ago. That's not the case. But I still believe in this team a little bit. I think Penny Hardaway will they'll get them back. I think they will win at least 1 game against FAU. So we'll see. Speaking of FAU, North Texas visited FAU. FAU, the 22nd team in the country, and FAU won the game 66-63 thanks to a John L. Davis game winner. He was trying to draw the foul last second, did not draw the foul, but made the 3. It was an incredible shot. FAU is just amazing at these close games. It is incredible how many overtime games and how many one-possession games that they have. FAU is just kind of squeaking through the American right now. They are currently right there with Charlotte at the top. That's all the results we needed to get through. Some of the things to take note of as we get into our future bets segment right here in a second. All right, let's talk future bets. We're going to start with the conference outlooks. We're going to start in the Big 12, which has been the best conference this year. So a few teams to note that we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about Houston, Iowa State, Texas Tech, and Kansas. These are the only teams kind of worth noting. Please do not bet on Baylor they are plus 2,000. These odds are via FanDuel, by the way. Baylor is not going to win the conference. They're plus 2,000. Their odds are plus 2,000 for a reason. Let's start with Houston. Houston, they're plus 100 as of right now. They're the heavy favorite to win the conference. They're currently in second, right behind Texas Tech, as we noted. Houston has a huge matchup on Saturday at Kansas. They may fall, which may make this line even a little bit better. So I would hold out on Houston to see how they do against Kansas. They also do get Kansas in the season finale at home, which could be crucial. They also get Iowa State at home. Iowa State is going to be one of the teams we'll talk about that has a chance. Houston is the best team in the conference, so if you're looking for that, they are the best team. They do have a more difficult schedule than some. We mentioned at Kansas. They also go at Baylor. They go at Oklahoma. They go at Cincinnati. And then, as we said, they do play at Texas tonight. So wait on those bets a little bit. Well, I guess when you're listening to this, it'll already be over. So see what that result was like. So the lines may change, but they have sort of a difficult schedule. Well, they're the best team. If you're gonna go off of that, take Houston. But let's dive into Iowa State so you can see how their schedule compares a little bit differently than Houston's. Iowa State has 6 road games left, which is a lot for this time in the year. They're at Baylor, at Texas, at Cincinnati, at Houston. Then they do have at UCF and at Kansas State. So in this conference, you're going to want your road games to be at West Virginia, at UCF, and at Oklahoma State. That would be the easier games. And then Kansas State is probably next. And they do have UCF and at Kansas State. But as we said earlier, that Kansas State game is going to be kind of a new rivalry game because of those allegations that Jerome Tang made against TJ Ossenberger. But they do get Texas Tech at home, which is going to be big for the standings because we did say Texas Tech is currently in first. Texas Tech is currently the second favorite at plus 470. Iowa State's plus 600 right now. The reason being, yes, Texas Tech is in first, but Texas Tech also has the easiest schedule of these 3 teams. The road games are at TCU, at Baylor, at Iowa State. So they'll at least drop probably 2 of those 3, but then the next 3 road games that they have is UCF, West Virginia, and Oklahoma State. So as we said, those are the 3 teams you want on the road because those are teams who, even if you're going on the road, you will probably be favored against them and expected to beat them. They also don't have to play Houston the rest of the year, who is the best team. They already lost to Houston, and they're still ahead in the standings. They do get Kansas and Baylor at home, so those will be tough matchups for sure. We've seen Baylor be vulnerable along with Kansas. Speaking of Kansas, Kansas is plus 800, but they do play the toughest schedule out of these 4 teams. They've already dug themselves a hole. They're 2 games back as of right now. But if you're trusting in Bill Self, you know he's going to get his stuff under control. I personally would not take them even plus 800. There's a reason that Kansas came into the year at the top. Obviously, they do every year, but there's a reason that they're plus 800. That they're trying to throw that line out to you so you can get it. They have a very slim chance of winning the conference. I Value wise, yes, Houston is plus 100, and this is it could hit, but you might as well just, if you're going to throw Houston in there, probably throw Texas Tech. I'm more ahead on Texas Tech than I am of Iowa State. As we said, they do have the easiest schedule. They get those games against UCF, West Virginia, and Oklahoma State. It's going to come down to that Texas Tech Iowa State game, who I think ends up eventually coming in second. I do think Houston's going to win it all, but based on value, Texas Tech may very well be the best bet on this list. Once again, please do not bet Baylor at plus 2,000. They are not going to win the conference this year. Let's move into the SEC, which is the most challenging one. We'll talk about some of those schedules. This is the one I'm probably the most 50-50 on. Alabama is currently half a game ahead of Tennessee, and this is only because they've played one more game, so they have one more win. But let's start with Tennessee, who is the favorite at plus 115. Also kind of the heavy favorite, Alabama second at plus 250. Tennessee does have to go to Kentucky on Saturday. They'll also travel to take on Texas A&M and then Bud Walton. Go to College Station and then Bud Walton in the same week. That's tough in Arkansas. That's a tough stretch right there. That'll be real tough environments. We'll see how well Tennessee's offense, who seems to struggle without Dalton Connect, really will perform in these tough road games. They do get Auburn, Kentucky, and A&M at home, but these are going to be no easy task here. The big one will be probably at Alabama on March 2nd. This may be for the conference title. We're going to talk about Alabama here in a second. Alabama kind of flying under the radar in terms of national title contenders because they lost all those close non-conference games, but Alabama is in a good spot right now to maybe win the SEC. They're plus 250, so more than double the odds of what Tennessee is at plus 115. Alabama has the easier schedule as well, I would believe. They play Kentucky, Auburn, and Florida on the road, which is tougher than Tennessee's. I mean, yes, Tennessee has to go to Kentucky as well, but A&M and Arkansas, although they may be tougher environments, are not as difficult games as Auburn and Florida. But as we said, Alabama does get Tennessee at home, and Alabama is ahead of Tennessee in the rankings just because of playing more games as of right now, even with their loss being against Tennessee. So getting Tennessee at home will be a big game for Alabama to maybe win the conference. We'll see. KenPom currently has the SEC as Tennessee and Alabama going 14-4, which is probably about what I would predict as well. With that being said, Alabama's odds are better than Tennessee's. Alabama's odds, as we said, are more than double. So I would maybe lean towards Alabama, but I completely understand Tennessee. I do think Tennessee is the best team in the conference. Alabama's schedule may lean that way a little bit. Another kind of long shot, obviously, we have to mention Kentucky. They're plus 850 as of right now. I know a lot of people think that this team is one of the best teams in the nation talent-wise, and quite frankly, so do I. If you're basing your betting just on this, if you're looking for long shots, plus 850 may be the best price you can get them at, especially with playing at home against Tennessee here. If they get that win, this line should go down quite a bit. Their away games are fairly easy, but then they do get a season finale at Tennessee. So we'll see about Kentucky, but plus 850 might be the best you can get them at, but don't I quite honestly don't expect them to win the conference as of now, but only a game back, so we'll see. All right, let's move into the Mountain West. We kind of talked about Utah State and New Mexico already, and they are tied at the top at plus 195. My pick as of right now would be Utah State at plus 195. Utah State gets New Mexico at home, which we know how important that is. Utah State did lose at New Mexico, and Utah State they lost at New Mexico, and they still have a lead in the conference as of now. Utah State also gets San Diego State on the road and at home, so that those are never easy games against Jaden Ledee and San Diego State. They, as we said, they already have that loss at New Mexico, but their away games are easier than New Mexico's. The rest of their away games, other than that San Diego State one, obviously is never easy. But I think even if Utah State is to lose at San Diego State, as long as they beat New Mexico at home, they should win it without a doubt, I would think. But be sure to check out these lines on FanDuel, by the way. Don't try to get some visual on it. Don't just listen and go off my bets. It's obviously a personal thing. But moving on to the WCC, we haven't talked a lot about this. And as of right now, the best bet is St. Mary's, minus 150, which is not great odds. I understand that. But we'll talk about it here, why they are much more likely to win the conference than Gonzaga. We'll just say St. Mary's has been rolling as of right now. They've been playing great. They're undefeated in the conference. They really don't have any more difficult games other than Gonzaga. They play Gonzaga at home and on the road. They play them twice, so maybe split the series there. Gonzaga still has to play San Francisco at San Francisco, and Gonzaga, we saw them almost lose to San Francisco at home. And Gonzaga already has a one-game deficit. St. Mary's has the easier schedule. St. Mary's is actually favored by 10 plus in every remaining game other than the Gonzaga ones and that San Francisco one, who they get at home, which it'll likely be a must-win game for St. Mary's to win that conference. So I fully expect them to win that game, as it is late in the year, right before their Gonzaga game. I think St. Mary's is the best bet at minus 150 as of right now. All right, we want to talk about the AAC a little bit because this is an interesting one. We haven't really discussed where the standings are here that much, but we'll start with FAU. We'll let you decide. I'm kind of iffy on this one on who to pick. FAU, if I had to pick a team, I would put that I would just expect to be the winner of the conference. It would probably be FAU, but their odds are not that great at minus 155, and they do still have a tough schedule. They have to go at UAB, at South Florida, at Memphis, and at North Texas. These are all top half of the teams in the conference. Um, I mean, obviously, you got to throw in Charlotte and SMU into that conversation of top half, but they also have a home game against Memphis. Memphis is struggling right now, but we expect them to rebound, and we've seen how many close games FAU plays. Even there, they've got a couple quad four losses, so we'll really have to see what FAU does and Dusty May does going forward. But the other teams to note is Charlotte. Charlotte is also at the top of the AAC right now. Charlotte has to go to Memphis and South Florida, but that's about it. That's everything else. They might drop one or two games, but I would expect this team to be right there with FAU at the end, and they are plus 300. So their odds are decent. They're not perfect, but better odds than FAU, and quite frankly, an easier schedule. The other team we want to note is North Texas at plus 700. We talked about North Texas just barely losing that game to John L. Davis from FAU buzzer beater. But North Texas has to go to SMU and UAB, but they do have Memphis and FAU at home, so they have a chance to sneak out some games there. The FAU game is their second to last on the schedule, so it may come down to crunch time there. They may be looking out for revenge, and even a chance at a regular season conference title. So we'll see there. North Texas plus 700. I would strongly consider them. Those are pretty good odds for just being a game and a half back. The team to not bet, I would not consider betting Memphis at plus 1,600 right now. Yes, those odds are very high for who is just a top 10 team in the nation, but they do still have to go to FAU, to North Texas, and SMU, who I quite frankly believe are three of the four best teams in the league. So Memphis plus 1,600, it might be a lost cause for them as of now. All right, let's move on. Just talk about the Big Ten real quick. This one shouldn't take long because I quite frankly would not bet on anyone other than Purdue. Purdue is minus 280 right now, but yes, minus 280 seems to be good for parlays, but I would not even throw that in a parlay as of right now. Wisconsin at plus 230 is currently second, but even those odds aren't worth it for their chances. This is just a conference I would not bet in general. Wisconsin is currently a half game ahead of Purdue, but Purdue does have the easier schedule. But Purdue does actually take on Wisconsin at Wisconsin this week, so watch the line change a little bit. Purdue should take care of business at home against just about everyone. They only have they have four away games left, and they're at Ohio State and at Michigan. And Ohio, we'll see about that Ohio State game. You never know with at Ohio State, but they should win that game, I would think. And at Michigan, they should definitely win that game. Juwan Howard's team is horrible, for those who do not know. Then they do have at Illinois, which could be scary. You never know. We saw Illinois have some fight against Purdue earlier in the year. And then we mentioned at Wisconsin. You might think, yeah, maybe Wisconsin wins this game, but the thing you got to know is that Purdue does also get Wisconsin at home later in the year, where they should win that game. Purdue is, I believe, the best team in the country, and at home they should take care of business. They're yet to lose a home game this year. Wisconsin has to play at Nebraska, at Iowa, and at Indiana at Assembly Hall. I do think Wisconsin's a little bit, obviously more vulnerable than Purdue, but I'm in on Wisconsin. I think this is a good team. I just don't think they can compete with Purdue to win the Big Ten. Wisconsin also gets Illinois at home, which is also kind of a scary one. I would not bet the Big Ten. I do not think it's worthwhile. I mean, plus 230 odds for the underdog it's just not that great for a future bet. All right, let's talk about the ACC real quick. The only one I have to note, North Carolina is minus 600 right now. Don't bet North Carolina. That's not worth it for those odds, obviously. Maybe consider Duke at plus 460. Yes, they are 2 games back right now. North Carolina and Duke are at the top of the ACC. How cool is that? Love to see that. As we mentioned, Duke plays at North Carolina on Saturday, and they do get North Carolina at home later in the year. They always play twice. So if they were to kind of sneak this one out on the road, these lines might change quite a bit. So something to keep an eye on there. Obviously, futures betting is just all about seeing what's fluctuating where. Um, you never know. If they were to sneak one out, it's a rivalry game. You never know what's going to happen. I do think North Carolina is going to win at home, but you never know. Crazier things have happened. If Duke were to win this game, then Duke wins that game at home, then they're tied. They are both have 2 losses. Both schedules are very similar. They're going to play the Syracuse's, the Miami Floridas. They're all the teams in the ACC just kind of blend together this year outside of Duke and North Carolina. They're all kind of the same, but Duke would be if there's one to sprinkle a little bit of money on, it would probably be Duke. All right, let's move on to the A10. And the one I would take is Richmond at plus 135. They already have that 1 game lead over Dayton. And unfortunately for Dayton, Dayton has a tougher schedule to play than Richmond. Dayton has to play at St. Joe's. We saw how good St. Joe's can be earlier in the year. They beat Villanova. They took Kentucky to overtime. They play at George Mason, who is having a very good year this year. At Loyola Chicago, Sister Jean. They're currently third in the A10 as of right now, kind of flying under the radar a little bit. They were predicted high in the preseason. They kind of fallen off, but they're still there. They still got a lot of talent. While Richmond, they got it easy. They have to play at VCU, at George Mason. That's about it. I think Richmond has the easier schedule. We'll see. I mean, I think Dayton's the better team. I think Dayton has a better chance during March. But Richmond at plus 135, they're the underdogs. Dayton is currently minus 130. So we'll see. I would really consider taking Richmond plus 135 in this game. Don't bet anything in the Big East. UConn is minus 950. That is insane. UConn is going to win that conference unless something crazy happens. Or the Pac-12 even. Arizona is they're tied at the top with Oregon right now, but Arizona is a much better basketball team than Oregon. They're minus 300 as of right now. No value there really. Worthwhile. Oregon also does not get Arizona at home anymore because they just lost to Arizona last week, which we talked about. So Arizona at minus 300, I would not consider betting the Pac-12 or the Big East on top of the Big Ten. That's it for our conference breakdown. Those are the conferences that are listed on FanDuel. But we are going to move in a little bit to some of our national championship bets. We're just going to go over some of the favorites, and you think if it's worthwhile to bet them a little bit. Let's start with Purdue. Purdue is currently plus 700. Yes, I think they're the best team in basketball. If I were to pick right now, I would probably pick them or North Carolina to win it all. As of right now, at plus 700, those odds might not be worth it. It is so hard to win 6 games in March. You never know. I I would not bet Purdue at plus 700. Those odds are just quite frankly not good enough. At second, we have UConn at plus 900. These odds are also not great, especially for a defending champion. We know how hard it is to defend. Everyone wants to knock them off. Now they do look the part. They're a great basketball team. They are incredibly coached. But what I will say is in March, we always see talent kind of outweighs coaching. I don't know if that's the right way to put it, but like we've seen with all these John Calipari teams, with all the All-Americans, they always seem to make a run. And I'm not going to say that's not because of John Calipari, but I'm going to say it's because that talent is there and these guys are built for the moment. And quite frankly, I don't think UConn is the most talented team. I think they're a little bit soft down low with Donovan Clingan. He's not much of a scorer. He is a great defensive player. He's a big body. He's a good basketball player, but I just don't think he has anything near that impact of the obviously the Zach Edey's or even the Omar Balos or the Armando Baycots. Their guard play is good. Cam Spencer and Tristan Newton is probably the best backcourt in the Big East. They're smart. They're good players. I just don't think they are the most talented players in the world. They're great in their own way, but maybe it's just a personal thought. I don't think it's UConn this year. I love this team. They're not going to get upset first round. I can almost guarantee that, or the second round. I think they're going to win games because they're so put together and play for each other, but the talent just isn't all the way there. It's my personal opinion. I understand if you take UConn, but at plus 900, I would not be taking them. Houston is also plus 900, also not great odds. Usually over 1,000 is where we'll say, yeah, these are decent odds at this time in the year for a national championship bet. Plus 900, it's close, but still not great odds, especially for a team that that doesn't have the offensive firepower. But from what I saw against Kansas State, they're starting to figure it out. It's strange for defensive teams to win the national championship just strictly based on their defense. But this team is showing spurts of potential scoring. They would be in my Final Four right now, so I fully understand if you take them at plus 900. Not my favorite bet, but one I would consider. I would consider Houston over UConn for sure. North Carolina is next at plus 1,300, and this is my favorite bet to take. I got lucky. I got North Carolina at plus 4,500 early in the year. I've been high on North Carolina since the beginning of this year. I think their talent is there. I kind of knew RJ Davis was going to take a big role with Caleb Love leaving. It was addition by subtraction. Getting rid of Caleb Love has brought out the best in North Carolina. Not to say Caleb Love hasn't been great for Arizona. He has. That's addition by addition for North Carolina. He's been great for Arizona, excuse me. He's been great for Arizona this year. But North Carolina is the team that I like in at plus 1,300. I still think those odds are there. If they lose a game against Duke, maybe check and see if they drop to 1,500 or so. But this is the team. They're experienced. They got the transfers in that they needed. We talked about Harrison Ingram, Cormac Ryan, Elliot Cadeau is one of the most underrated freshmen in the country. He is so fast. He is a great defender. He is a great pass first point guard. I've been saying it from the beginning of this year. I think North Carolina has all the pieces. Seth Trimble coming off the bench is also great. I've been saying from the beginning, bet North Carolina, bet North Carolina. They're still my favorite bet as of right now. Tennessee is next at plus 1,400. This bet I do not like at all. Now I understand that Dalton Connect is absolutely incredible, but what happened if Dalton Connect has one bad game? What if you get a defender who just shuts him down, which is bound to happen in a six-game March Madness stretch to win the national championship? His team's offense just isn't that great. Other than that, he has Zakai Ziegler and Vescovy, and Adu has been good down low, but they rely on Dalton Connect too much. He's inexperienced in March, obviously coming from Northern Colorado. He hasn't been in those big moments yet. Now, every big moment he's been in the SEC, he has thrived at. But that doesn't mean, he's human. He's going to get maybe one bad game in March. You never know. I love Tennessee. As I said, they would be my pick to win the SEC right now, but I would be hesitant on betting them to win the national championship. I don't think I see it happening. One I do like better, and that has even better odds, is Arizona at plus 1,600. The talent is there. 1 through 5 in their starting lineup, they are great. They even have Krivas coming off the bench at 7-2. I've compared them to last year's UConn team more than enough times. The only question I have for this team is, can Tommy Lloyd win the big games? It's happened every year. Tommy Lloyd, I got a little hesitant. As a March Madness fan, I was watching some highlights from last year. Just watching that Princeton game, that team just gave up. Yes, you're down 4 with 6 seconds, but they didn't even foul Princeton. Down 4 with 6 seconds left. It's kind of like you just got to want it more. You got to refuse to lose. Yes, I know they weren't going to win that game. It's very unlikely, but it just body language wasn't great for the last couple minutes in that game for Arizona. This team is too talented to not be a national championship favorite, which is why they're there. They've been second for a while in favoritism in this on FanDuel, right behind Purdue. But we'll see. Another thing to note is the Final Four is in Phoenix this year. Would essentially be a very heavily favored Arizona crowd there. If they were to sneak into the Final Four, keep that in mind. I got Arizona earlier in the year at plus 2,000. I would even consider them at plus 1,600. I think the talent is there, and if they make the Final Four, almost a home court advantage. I'm in on the Wildcats this year. Now let's talk about the next couple teams. We'll just throw them in a group because they are all SEC teams, and it is Kentucky, Alabama, and Auburn. They're all plus 2,000. I would not consider betting Alabama or Auburn whatsoever, not even at plus 2,000. I have not seen Auburn even be a top 15 team. Yes, I fell into a little bit of the category of, wow, this team's blowing out everyone. They've won 13 games in a row. This team has no quad one wins. This team should not be one of the favorites to win the national championship. Alabama, I'm even hesitant on them just because of their defensive ability. Yes, they are great on offense. Don't think they have the defense to make a national championship run. Someone's going to light them up in March. Well, I don't know who it is. I would maybe consider Kentucky at plus 2,000 if you got them earlier. Good for you when they before they started getting on everyone's radar. They have so much talent. We know that their guard plays great, but they are young. They are inexperienced. But at plus 2,000, it's okay odds, I would say, for this Kentucky team. One thing I am going to say, do not bet on Kansas or Duke. No matter how good their odds look, there is a reason that their odds look so great right now. It is because these teams are, quite frankly, I do not believe national title contenders right now. Kansas, especially, they just don't have that fifth person. I'm not even that high on Hunter Dickinson, honestly. I think he's going to be a Big 12. He's going to be in the running for Big 12 Player of the Year. But quite frankly, he's just not kind of a difference maker. Yes, he puts up good numbers. But if they have a go-to guy, if I need a bucket for Kansas, a big moment, I'm giving the ball to Kevin McCullough. I'm not giving it to Hunter Dickinson. And maybe that's a good thing that you have two guys to even consider. It's just not there. They have no bench. The only guys who can score the ball is Kevin McCullough and Hunter Dickinson. DeJuan Harris, pass first point guard. He is a very good point guard. He is he's a great defender as well, but they just don't have that scoring coming from anywhere else. KJ Adams has stepped up, yet he is not an elite player to win a national championship. Do not bet on Kansas. Duke, I think I've been even more disappointed in Duke because my expectation levels were actually higher for Duke coming into the year than they were for Kansas. They were preseason number 1, number 2. But no, I'm not in on John Shire yet as an elite coach. I don't think that they have the pieces there. We'll see when they get healthy, but I would not consider betting Duke as of right now, unless something crazy happens where, I don't know, Jeremy Roach turns into RJ Davis or something like that. But there's a reason those odds are so good for Kansas and Duke because they, quite frankly, do not have a great chance of winning the national title. Now I'll talk about just a few long shots that I could see, maybe making a miracle run, maybe make a Final Four run. I know you can bet Final Four picks as well. New Mexico is the first team I'm going to talk about. Yes, they have a great home court advantage, which is why I'm a little bit hesitant. But at plus 6,000, this team is really good. This team has a ton of talent. If you watch one of their games, you will see this talent. They're not just a home team who relies on their fans. They have a lot of talent. I would consider betting them at plus 6,000, along at plus 6,000 with FAU. FAU, I have been disappointed in this year, but at plus 6,000, this team did make the Final Four last year. This team should have been a national championship game had it not been for a Lamont Butler buzzer beater for San Diego State. They have all the pieces back, but I think if they didn't make that Final Four run last year, you'd kind of be looking at them and saying, yeah, this is a team that might be a 5 seed that I'm 100% taking a 12 seed to beat them if there was no last year bias. So little iffy on FAU, but at plus 6,000, yeah, that's pretty good odds for a Final Four team last year that returned everybody. I would consider that. Then I am also going to throw Dayton into that conversation at plus 7,500. Pretty good odds there for a team who looks like Dayton's best team in a while. That 2020 tournament got canceled where Dayton was looking like they could even be a 1 seed. I don't know. I can't remember if they were a 1 seed or not, but this is a team that's almost as good as that team, and you never know. They could make a run. Deron Holmes is incredible. If he gets on a hot streak, this team is fast. This team shoots threes. They have the style to make a Final Four national championship run. I would consider a little bit on Dayton. That's it for our betting segment. If you have any questions, feel free to let us know. If you have any more thoughts, we would love to hear. We're always open to other opinions, but hopefully you take some of our picks into consideration. Hopefully the schedule's helped you out a little bit. Let's take a quick little break here before we jump into some of the games to know for this upcoming week. We have another good week of college basketball. Start on Tuesday with a matchup out of the SEC at 6:30. South Carolina visits number 5 Tennessee. Tennessee is favored by 12. These lines are going to be via KenPom. FanDuel lines are not out yet. This game is on the SEC network. Tennessee giving 12 points at home seems like too many points to me. I'm taking Michi Johnson and South Carolina plus the 12. Tennessee, I think, definitely wins this game, but we'll see if Dalton Connect's heater can continue. I think teams are going to start catching on, and you're just going to have to face guard him like crazy. I think South Carolina will do it. South Carolina has impressed this year. We'll see if they can cover this 12. I think I'll take them to cover. At 7 o'clock, out of the Big East, number 9 Marquette visits Villanova on FS1. Marquette favored by 1 via KenPom. Interesting matchup here. I've talked bad about Kyle Neptune, probably too much, unfortunately. But Marquette, I'm also not as high on as many people. They're number 9 in the AP poll. I currently have them as 17. They quite frankly haven't impressed me that much this year. Tyler Kolek has been a little bit disappointing this year. I expected him to be a little better. With that being said, I think I will take Marquette and Shaka Smart over Kyle Neptune. It's going to be a rocking environment. We'll see. That's a tough line. I'm not too confident taking Marquette. So I think Villanova's talent's there. It's just if Kyle Neptune can pull one out there. At 7 o'clock, number 14 Illinois visits Ohio State on Peacock. Illinois favored by 4 in this game. Ohio State, as we said, desperately needs a win. They're coming off that loss to Northwestern by 25. Blowout. I think Ohio State rebounds. I'm not sure if they win this game. I think I'll take them plus the 4 in this game. We'll see how that Columbus crowd treats Terrence Shannon. I think I'll take Ohio State to cover the 4 in this one. At 7 o'clock, a ranked-on-ranked matchup. Number 15, Texas Tech visits number 25, TCU. TCU favored by 4. This game's on ESPN2. TCU has played more close games than just about anyone in the nation, so 4 is kind of a scary number. They're kind of like Oklahoma. Every game seems to be close, even Texas Tech. I think I'll take Texas Tech to cover the 4 in this game, even on the road. That environment will be rocking for TCU, but Texas Tech on the road, I'm in on Texas Tech as of right now. At 8 o'clock, speaking of Oklahoma, number 23 Oklahoma visits Kansas State on ESPN+. Oklahoma favored by 1 via KenPom, and I think Kansas State should be favored in this game. I will take Kansas State to cover that 1 and win the game. I fully expect Jerome Tang's squad to rebound after that blowout against Houston. At 8:30, a rivalry game. I'm very excited for this one. Mississippi State visits Ole Miss. Ole Miss favored by 1 via KenPom. This game's on the SEC network. This is a game I strongly encourage people to watch. This is a bubble game. It has high implications as of right now, and it is a heated rivalry. Think I'm in on Chris Beard's squad. I'm taking Ole Miss to win at home against Mississippi State. At 9 o'clock in the Mountain West, San Diego State visits Colorado State on CBS Sports Network. Colorado State favored by 1. I've been in on the home teams yet. As of right now, I am not in on Colorado State. I'm going to take San Diego State to win this game at Colorado State. We'll see how electric that environment is, but I think San Diego State is the better basketball team. The final one we want to talk about is a bubble game out of the ACC at 9 o'clock. Miami visits North Carolina State, who is favored by 1. This game is on ESPN2. 2 teams that I cannot get a grasp of. I have no clue how to rate Miami, how to rate NC State. With that being said, I will strictly take the home team, North Carolina State, -1. Let's move into Wednesday. Out of the Big Ten, the number 2 team in the nation hosts Northwestern in a revenge game. This game is on the Big Ten Network at 6:30. Purdue is favored by 13 via KenPom. Yes, it's a revenge game. Yes, it's Zach Edey. Yes, it's at Mackey. I just think Northwestern's one of those teams that just kind of has Purdue's number, as we saw that with Rutgers just earlier this week, where yes, Purdue is a 10 times better basketball team than Rutgers, but Rutgers just plays Purdue well. Same with Northwestern. I'll take Northwestern to cover the 13. Purdue's going to win the game, but I think Northwestern covers 13 points. Also at 6:30, number 24, now ranked in the AP poll, Alabama visits Georgia on the SEC network. Alabama favored by 7 via KenPom, and I will without a doubt take Georgia plus the 7. I'm impressed from what I've seen from Mike White's squad. I think Alabama is good. I would maybe pick them to win the game. Maybe not, though. Georgia at home. Saw what Georgia did at home against Tennessee. They looked really good, and Alabama is not as good as Tennessee. So we'll see. I'll take Georgia plus the 7. At 7 o'clock, Wake Forest visits Pitt on the ACC network. Pitt favored by 1 via Ken Palm. Interesting line here. Interesting games. Kind of tough games to pick this week, it seems. I like Hunter Sallis and Wake Forest, but I think I like Pitt at home a little bit better. They got that big win over Duke, and then I saw them have some heart against Miami and almost fight all the way back, and they made it a game at Miami at least. So I think I'll take Pitt. I'm liking what I'm seeing from Blake Hinson. I'll take Pitt minus the 1 in this game. At 8 o'clock, Florida visits number 10 Kentucky. Kentucky favored by 6. This game's on ESPN. Kentucky won at Florida earlier in the year, if you remember, by a couple. I don't think this line's going to be 6. I think it's going to be more like 7.5. And either way, I think I will take Kentucky. I think Kentucky blows them out, especially after their rough offensive performance against Arkansas. I think they blow out Florida. As I said, I'm not too pleased with the coaching going on over at Florida right now. The number 1 team in the nation is playing as well at 8:30. They host Providence without Bryce Hopkins, unfortunately. But UConn is favored by 12 in this game. This game's on FS1. I'll take UConn to cover that 12. I mean, that was a dominating performance against Xavier. This is a bigger game against Providence. Providence is better than Xavier. Yet I've kind of been down on Providence the whole year, although they did just go in and beat Seton Hall. That was without Kadari Richmond, but I'll take UConn to cover this 12. I think they are too good for Providence right now. At 10:30, also out of the Mountain West, which we love talking about, Boise State visits number 19 New Mexico. New Mexico favored by 9. This game's on FS1, and New Mexico is cover machines at home at the Pit. I'll take them to cover the 9 in this game. Then out of the WCC, we're going to throw in this game because we haven't talked that much about the WCC, with that being because Gonzaga is not very good this year, unfortunately. But I'm at 11 o'clock. Santa Clara, who did beat Gonzaga earlier in the year, visits St. Mary's on ESPNU. St. Mary's has been rolling. They are favored by 11 in this game via Ken Palm. Kind of an interesting line here. St. Mary's, we've seen blowout teams, yet we've seen them lose to teams they should not be losing to. I think they covered the 11 in this game just because I think they have something to prove as the top team in the WCC this year, as the team to beat. They want to beat the team that beat Gonzaga. The final game we're going to talk about is on Thursday. So, yes, there is nothing great on Friday, but we will be recording just about all day on Friday with numerous posts on our Instagram and Twitter and Facebook about the loaded slate on Saturday. Talk about that here in a second. But at 8:30, a big Big Ten game. Number 6 Wisconsin visits Nebraska on the Big Ten Network. Wisconsin favored by 3 via Ken Palm. Nebraska coming off that horrible loss to Maryland. These lines are tough. I mean, it is so fluctuated this year with how teams are getting blown out. Nebraska getting blown out. Does that mean they're going to recover? Does that mean that they're just going to kind of fall apart? I think they recover. I'm in on Nebraska. I think they're going to be a tournament team. I'll take them to cover the 3 in this game. I think this might be the game that catches some people by surprise. Either way. Either I could see Wisconsin winning by 15-20 and really gain some people's attention, or Nebraska could win this game, and which would move Purdue near the top, or tied for the top at the Big Ten. So we'll see there. So that's our Sweet 16 games that we have this week. Big slate upcoming this week, but the bigger slate is going to go on Saturday, which we will have another show to discuss that here in a few. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that Sweet 16. That's going to do it for our show today. Hopefully everyone enjoyed the betting segment that we got into. As we mentioned, we do have a huge Saturday of college hoops. Duke plays North Carolina. Houston goes to Kansas. Tennessee goes to Kentucky. There's a lot more games. Sunday, Purdue goes to Wisconsin in the top 6 matchup. So be sure to tune in for our Saturday morning show, where we're going to preview all those games with a lot of our picks and much more. We'll get more in depth on some of the lines there. We are looking for a co-host, so anyone interested, feel free. The DMs are always open. Shoot us an email. You'll find everything on our Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Speaking of our Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, be sure to follow us on there at Bracket Science with 2 S's on Instagram and Twitter, and Bracket Science 2 words on Facebook. We appreciate every follow on there. We are continuing to try and grow this. Please give us a like and a subscribe, whether you're listening to us on audio or on YouTube. We really appreciate it. We're trying to move forward with this, maybe even move into a daily show, which would be very fun to do. But as we mentioned, we are looking for a co-host first. But every follow, every review, every like really helps, and we really appreciate it. We appreciate you guys for tuning in. Hopefully everyone has a great rest of their week. See you later.